Hey everyone! Welcome everyone to an interesting video on why breaking the laws of physics and performing a logical contradiction is not the same. These two, performing a logical contradiction and breaking the laws of physics, is different. They do not follow the same respect. They do not follow the same exact definition. What exactly is the difference between breaking the laws of physics and performing a contradiction? Let me explain to you in a simple term. Let me explain to you guys in the simple, most peaceful definition I can explain to you. Okay, guys? Number one, breaking the laws of physics is not the same as performing a logical contradiction. Why? Because breaking the laws of physics does not follow one state being in two or like say here, not here in the same respect. Things like one thing being in two places at the same time might not be a contradiction, because if there's something to do with the space-time or how the space-time is curved or twisted, it will all make sense when the big picture is revealed, you see. However, in contradictions there is no big picture to be revealed. It just does not make sense in its fullest, you see. And that simple definition, it does not make sense in its fullest. Close definition, you see. An example for breaking laws of physics would be to go from for you, point A to B is 10 miles away, but for someone else in the same parallel line, point A to B is 1,000 miles away. That would seem to be a contradiction, right? How 10 miles for me, 1,000 miles for this person, we're in the same parallel line. That does not make sense, are we? We're both going to the same direction. However, if the space-time is bent for me, for this guy it's not, it's actually 1,000 miles away, but the space-time is bent for me, the space is bent for me, it would all reveal the bigger picture, and you'll see that it is not in the same respect. You see, yes, it looks like a contradiction, but it's not in the same respect. An example would be if for me something is that direction, but for someone else something is that direction, but however the space-time is twisted or curved in a way, so the direction is actually that way, but for me, or the direction is that way, for example, but for me it's this way, and I am going to reach it, but I'm going this way, and there is no curving around or going around the earth, something like that. Same straight direction, but the space-time is curved around, so that is also the direction as well. That is not as well as a contradiction, because then you can reveal the bigger picture and see how this works, you see. Another example I can describe before breaking the laws of physics is that the breaking the laws of physics is like, for example, you go inside the tunnel that is, for you, the tunnel is 1,000 miles long in the inside. For someone else walking around the outside of the exact tunnel, the tunnel is 10 miles long. So for you, it's 1,000 miles long. But then it is 1,000 miles long on the inside, but it's also 10 miles long from the outside, despite being the same respective tunnel. That's because the space-time on the inside is stretched. Once you see what's happening, the stretching of the space-time, curvature, bending and twisting, it reveals the bigger picture. And once the bigger picture is revealed, it does make sense, and there's no contradiction into that. An example for a proper contradiction would be a square circle, or a line that is bent and perfectly straight, or something like that in the same respect. It has to be in the same respect, which means no space-time twist or anything like that, because if that was the case, this will not be a contradiction, because you would see the bigger picture and it will all be revealed, as contradictions have no revealing to them. An example for contradictions, that contradictions are actually impossible to perform. You actually have a much higher chance to fly to the moon tomorrow than to create a square circle in your lifetime. Literally, guys, that's complexity of contradictions. That literally, you have a much higher chance to fly to the moon tomorrow than to create a square circle in your lifetime. You see, square circles are absolutely in no way, but flying to the moon is a possibility, and there's nothing contradictory with that, you see. Like, before breaking the laws of physics, bending space-time or stretching space-time or twisting space-time, making it look like an object is multiple places at once by twisting space-time, it's not a contradiction, because you can see the revealing of this. However, an example of something being true and false is a contradiction, you see. I also recently thought of something called the third alternative. Now, the third alternative is not a contradiction, but it's something that at least I cannot comprehend. And that is, if there's something different, that's something that is the absence of true and false. Like, if it's not true and it's not false, like, false is the opposite of true. True is the opposite of false. False, absence of true, and true is the absence of false. Simple. But if there was something else that is the absence of true and false, what will that be? And how can something be not here, but also not here, like a third state that it's in that I just cannot comprehend? That is not really a contradiction, because it is not something like true and false. Saying this is not a contradiction. An example of non-contradictoriness is four-dimensional space. Four-dimensional space existing four spatial dimensions is not a contradiction. Despite you cannot imagine how a four-dimensional space would look like, you can never imagine this. You can never imagine four-dimensional space. It is not a contradiction, since it does not have the same respect. You see, two-dimensional beings would never see 3D, and we don't see that contradiction, do we? Same applies to 4D, you see. But contradiction like creating a square circle, or a open-closed window, or something like that, or a herbivorous carnivore, or a carnivorous herbivore is also a contradiction, because an animal cannot be a herbivorous carnivore. That's a contradiction. You know, you can either be a carnivore or herbivore or omnivore. If you want to be just a carnivore or herbivore, you cannot be both at the same time. That will make you an omnivore. You cannot be a carnivore and a herbivore without being an omnivore. Like, you're carnivore and you never eat meat, but you're herbivore and you... No, you're herbivore and you never eat meat, and you're a carnivore but you never eat plants. That does not make sense. That's a contradiction, as you can see. So they are not the same. They're different. So anyways, guys, I do hope that you enjoyed this video, guys. If you have any questions for another, this simple topic for you to, I've thought of, that space-time breaking is not the same as performing a contradiction, since it's not the same respect. Square circles, circle triangles, a four-sided triangle, making your way out of a maze that's truly impossible using the respect of the maze is also a contradiction. Like, maze is impossible to beat, and you follow the pathway, then use those exact pathways to get out, which means no breaking the walls or jumping over or anything like that. Use the same path of respect for walls to walk your way around, and you escape the impossible maze that has no escape to it is a contradiction and doesn't make sense, you see. So anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video, guys. See you later, guys. Bye.